Hey there everyone, Nubkeks here, and in today's video I'm going to give you a guide on raid leading in World of Warcraft. I've been I was guild lead for my guild for a little while before, but I was raid lead for my guild this expansion in BFA for Battle of Dazar Lore, Eternal Palace, and of course then Nyalotha. We got Cutting Edge in Mythic in all of those. So yeah, I want to give you sort of I think hopefully a good overview of what it is to raid lead and what you should focus on doing well. At the same time, I encourage you guys to leave questions. Although this is probably a niche topic and won't get as many views as most of the other videos, I still think that this will be very, very valuable to the people that it is relevant to, or at least I hope so. But yeah, if you have questions, let me know, and I'll probably do a second video actually directly answering your questions, because I assume that there's going to be parts that I am going to neglect, that I will just take for granted, and there will almost without question there's going to be parts that require more in-depth explanation than I can do in a single video. This is actually my second take doing this video, because I got about to the second page here, the third page, and the video is already half an hour long, so we're going to try to keep this shorter. And with that being said, let's just dive into it. I made the spreadsheet bigger, by the way, for you guys. I was experimenting with dark mode because some people requested that, and it just breaks some of the other websites, like the class colors and stuff. So I figured we'd just stick with the white mode for now. But let me know again. Hopefully this bigger thing is better for people on mobile. Okay, so being a raid leader, there's pros and cons, obviously. I think they're fairly straightforward too. The pros, you have the biggest impact on the team's progress, right? You're the person that can have the biggest effect. You can determine the strategies. You are the final decision maker. You lead to the vibe of the team as well. And that's a really good thing. Also, it's fun, right? Raiding in WoW is really fun. The fights in Mythic, they're generally speaking extremely well designed. People love doing it. And it's a very fulfilling and enjoyable thing as the team leader to lead your team through it, to develop the strategies, to work with players. I think that's great. And the most important thing is building a good community, right? For the people that are playing, like this is a huge part of their week. Like a fairly standard raid schedule, you could have like 2 days a week or maybe 3 days a week. We mostly do 2 days, and then we have a third day, which is kind of an optional alt day. But yeah, that's 6 to 9 hours of people's week. That's 2 to 3 evenings of their week, after they come home from work or come home from school or college, whatever it happens to be, where, that's what they're doing for the evening. It's a massive chunk of their evening. It's a big part of people's lives, and people make good friends. You make a really good community, and that is something that you are especially doing as the raid leader, is you're leading that, right? It's like you are the football coach, right, of the football team. You have a huge impact there. There are a lot of cons, of course. It is a lot of work. Like, let's say you do it, 9 hours raiding, and let's say you show up for 15 minutes early every single time. So let's average it out, and 10 hours a week of actually being in there in the raid leading. For those 10 hours, I'd say on average, there's at least another 10 hours outside of raid, preparing, talking with the officers, dealing with any issues that might have come up. And that's 20 hours of your week, that's a part-time job right there. It's a ton of work. Also, it's a position of responsibility, like you have to take responsibility when things go wrong. You can't just kind of sit back and let people sort things out themselves when shit is going down. Like, you have to go in there and you have to try to sort it out. There is a lot of pressure on you there, and that obviously is going to put a lot of people off. And then, of course, you're going to have to deal with some rough problems. Like, you will have to deal with some rough problems. You have to deal with drama. There's always some drama that will crop up. That's, that's not something that anyone wants to do, but it is something that you will have to do. So, yeah, bear that in mind. Okay, the next thing I want to look at here is just the overall organization of your guild / raid. In fact, I'm going to jump down here very quickly to the officer section, and this is how we sort of distribute our jobs as the officers. I think it's generally speaking good to have about 3 officers is what I feel is good. You get a nice variety of opinion. You can have good discussions with 3 different perspectives, and I think that's very valuable. It's also good for like loot council for voting in terms of like if you guys disagree in terms of what to do with the player or what to do with a bit of loot. It's good to have 3 people. It can be a 1-2 split or a 3-0 split or whatever. It's not going to end in a draw, and I think that is generally speaking good. And yeah, I think you don't want too many officers in a raid. I think that's really bad. Like if half of the people in the raid are officers and half aren't, that's just a bit weird. and you don't want to have like too much of a clique of the officers. You want to make sure that the officers are, you in an ideal world, the officers would mingle with everyone, and you don't want to have a sort of thing like that. This is the jobs that we split up though. So I raid lead, which we're going to talk about in this video. Guild lead, I kind of combine the two here a little bit, though they're not necessarily combined. But I mean, one of the big reasons I took over as raid lead was as the guild lead. I felt it just made sense to combine the two jobs. And yeah, like our guild had originally started because I was doing Heroes of the Storm content on WoW, Heroes of the Storm content on YouTube. A lot of the viewers then, I started this WoW guild for the viewers. So it just kind of made sense to combine them, but they don't necessarily have to be. I also heal lead as well. So being the healing officer, this is essentially planning out where the healing cooldowns are going to go in the fight. That obviously works very much in tandem with the raid lead. That's very important. So it makes sense for me to do this job. I would prefer, to be honest, to have an individual heal lead, but there's no one really in the raid that is interested, as far as I know, in doing that. But yeah, that would be a little bit more useful to have, you know, so someone could just specifically focus on the healing team, perhaps like shifting around the cooldown and stuff like that. I do think though it is valuable to have the heal lead ultimately report to the raid lead, so that the raid leader can go like, okay, I appreciate you might want to use the cooldowns this way, but I think that it is actually more important for the strategy that it goes this way, and that's the final say. That's sort of the goal of the guild leader and the raid lead as well, to be the final say, make those final decisions. Then Uter, one of the other officers, he handles recruitment, which is a massive job for a mythic guild. You're going to be recruiting all the time. There's always turnover. You know, real life stuff happens, or people, you know, just lose interest in the game, or they swap guilds or whatever. There's always turnover. There's always stuff going, and having a steady flow of recruitment is essential to having good raid progress, because you need to have good players coming in, and you need to have players that people enjoy playing with and get on with. We'll talk about this more later, but that's super important. And for me, it's extremely important, I think, that you'd have a recruitment officer. I think that's extremely important. You don't want to be dealing with recruitment and talking to a whole bunch of people, you know, during the week, on top of doing all this other stuff like the raid leading stuff and the raid prep. You don't want to have to be doing recruitment as well. Uter also leads the alt runs. For me, I personally don't really enjoy alt runs, leading them at all. They're very dull. I like progress raid leading more so. And I can survive raid leading farm, though I don't particularly enjoy it either. But yeah, so he does the alt runs, and he likes that. And he's also organized the boost runs that we do at the, you know, now we've cutting edge, you know, at the end of the expansion, get some gold. And then Hal, the final guild officer, she is Discord admin, also does the guild bank stuff. And again, I find this very valuable. I don't know if you necessarily would need an officer to do these things, but they are good tasks to have distributed and delegated in the raid. So essentially someone that is going to handle, you know, getting Vantis runes, cauldrons, feasts, whatever. They're going to have all that stuff, healing potions, just all that stuff handled, done. You don't want to be thinking about that when you're trying to, you know, sort out your raid and sort out your strategies and talk to your players and make sure everyone is on the right track with the fight. You don't want to have to be juggling like how many healing potions are in the guild bank. You don't want to have to do that. So having someone else to do that is great. The qualities you're looking for: someone gets shit done. That's what you want. You want them to be effective at their job. People good at discussing issues, because that is a job that every officer has, is the ability to talk to each other, get a variety of different opinions, be able to disagree on stuff, and come to resolutions and come to agreements even when you disagree. I think that's really important, to just get perspectives. Like, you might go, hey, I think Bob sucks, like, should we get rid of Bob? No, I don't think we should get rid of Bob. I actually think that Bob is a really good player and you're underestimating him, and this is the reason, and blah blah blah. You know, that sort of stuff is really valuable. It's also good to have officers that are positive. You know, that they're nice to be around, they enjoy what they're doing. That's good. That's really important as well. You know, it's going to be very off-putting for players if you're going into a raid team and the officers hate being officers or hate the raid team or hate raiding or whatever. That's not good. Also, it's important to be well geared and to put in the effort, right? So, you know, you can't ask your raiders to get a specific item level, or to, you know, grind up a specific, I guess in Shadowlands, renown level, or, you know, AP as it was in Legion and BFA. You can't be telling your raiders to do that if you're not doing it yourself. You have to be doing it as well. You don't need to be the best. I mean, like, we've got one guy who's fucking crazy. I think he's Heart of Azeroth level 100 or something. I don't even think I'm 95, you know. It doesn't, you don't need to be the best, but definitely don't be the worst. Definitely do not be the worst. I would say, generally speaking, in terms of like damage, in terms of raid performance, in terms of mechanics, in terms of everything, you know, as the raid lead especially, you know, you're going to be concentrating on raid leading. That takes a lot of your brain power. You're not going to be the best, but don't be the worst. Do not be at the bottom of the DPS meter. You don't want any of your officers to be at the bottom. You don't want your officers to be failing mechanics. That is going to be very, very, very problematic, because you're going to have raiders go, why are you telling me not to stand in the fire when you spend the whole raid fight stood in the fire, right? That's important. So yeah, I would recommend that. Let's go into what is the most important part. The most important part of being a raid leader, in my opinion, which is preparing for the raid. Preparing. And this is your goal as a raid leader. This is the number one thing. The number one thing to take away from the video is you must be the most prepared person in the raid. This is the thing you need to do. Be the most prepared. This doesn't mean... Okay, you know what? This is a good example, actually. This is a good example. I meant to switch this and I didn't. Your plan will almost never be perfect, and you need to be prepared to change it. So this point should actually be up here because it fits in better, right? You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to know every single detail about how the strategy will work. In fact, for complicated fights, it's impossible. I have certainly tried. I will tell you now, it's not possible. I think basically every single plan I've had, even when I've like researched them incredibly well, you still go into the fight and go, actually, you know, with our composition, it makes a little bit more sense if we do it like this, or it's just a little bit easier to do it like this, or that's a little bit tricky. Let's maybe do a simpler version. You know, there's lots of things that you're going to change, but the most important thing is that you're going into the raid and you understand how the raid fight works. You understand what your team needs to do, and you can explain it to them, and you can guide your raid team through it. That is your number one goal, your number one job. How are you going to do that? Okay, how are you going to do that? Number one, copy better guilds, right? Unless you're in like the world top 20 guilds, and it's going to be very difficult to actually find any info to copy. Well, even still, you know, the race to world first, you're going to have a bunch of the best guilds in the world are going to be streaming the entirety of their progress. Go watch it. Go check out some of it. Watch their kill videos. Find other groups. Watch their kill videos. See what they're doing. How are they handling the fight? What people are they getting to do what? This is an invaluable resource. Like, you can literally see exactly what these teams are doing. Multiple teams. You can just find that for free online. That's incredible. Another thing you're going to really want to do to get more specifics, because this will give you a great overview, but I mean, depending on their UI, depending on where people are looking, you might not see this stuff. But Warcraft logs will give you a ton of specifics. So for example, I didn't mean to do that. If we go in here, Warcraft logs, right? So you can go and you can look at any of these bosses. I mean, let's take, I don't know, Shadhar is a fine one. You can go into rankings. We're not going to look for top damage, because top damage is often going to be cheesing the fight. I think this is usually a good one. Execution, which is going to be ranking guilds based off of how well they handle the mechanics, as Warcraft logs defines it. You can also look for progress. That's also fine, like guild rankings, though most of these won't have logs. They won't have logs up here. But yeah, like you can go into execution, and we could take, I don't know, versatile over here, sure. And you can see the Shadhar fight, and you can see exactly what they're doing. I maybe chose a bad example because it's going to be a relatively simple fight. Not going to be too much going on in this fight. But you can go into this, and you can look at the damage taken. And these, let me actually see. I think I put in some of this. Yeah, so some of the big things you're going to be looking for, you're going to be looking for spell timings. You're going to look at which abilities are going to do the most damage to your team. What are the dangerous abilities? How are people assigning healing cooldowns or defensives? Who's doing what damage to enemies? You can look at replays. So for example, you can go in here. I can go to damage taken on friendlies and taken from ability, and I can look at this and go, okay, slurry outburst, noxious mantle, umbral mantle. I can see all these sources of damage, and I can plan around it. Yeah, you know, I'm actually going to use our N'Zoth kill because, you know, this is our kill and I know it better. So if I do the same thing for our N'Zoth kill, right, so for example, very, very quickly breaking down like healing stuff, right? So for N'Zoth, like this is total damage done. You can look and you can see, okay, and this is a really great example because I think it's very clear. But if you look at the damage sources on Mythic N'Zoth, you've got like stagger and melee, right? So that's just the tanks being hit. You only have 3 things that are doing more damage than that. So you can get a really easy sense of where to heal. So Infinity's Toll, like we can remove this, right? Infinity's Toll, okay, well this is just flat damage that's always going through the fight. That's most of the damage, in fact. You don't really need to worry about that. It's just damage every 5 seconds, cool. Evoke Anguish, this is one of the spicy ones, right? Evoke Anguish, it puts this really nasty dot on people for 8 seconds, really nasty. You also have to drop it in specific places. In fact, here we go. This will show you, like, we're going to be dropping this, and it leaves these permanent pools, and everyone should have an assigned position and should be in a good position, and not out there. Not out there. But yeah, you get the rough sort of idea. People are going to be dropping these in, it should be relatively set spots. And there's a lot of movement. So that's going to be very difficult to heal, right? There's a lot of damage overlapping a lot of movement. And yeah, then Eternal Torment, by the way, is just something at the start of the fight that's kind of more... It's more raid damage stuff. That's where you're going to use healing cooldowns on at the start of the fight, but it's not really a big deal. It's, as you can see, these big spikes, this is where things get scary. He basically, the boss does 4 sets of these, right? He does 4 sets. This is the wrong one. This one. So there's Invoke Anguish here, 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 and here. See, this one's a bit nasty because you've got a Harvest Thoughts just before it, which we soak as a raid. So that's a big thing. So you can look and see, for example, okay, how are we going to handle these damage spikes? What are we going to do? So you as the raid leader can go in and you can look at the healers, right? And we can look at what the healers are doing. So there's me, Staya, Mandua, Envir. Actually, let's look at Envir first. That probably makes the most sense. So you can look and say, where are they actually casting their spells, right? So the big cooldowns for Holy Paladin is going to be doing Avenging Wrath, right? And then Aura Mastery. So again, we can see and we can look at these abilities and we can see, okay, like 610, 630, 720. By the way, you could also go into this cast section and I could swap to enemies, and sometimes these can be hard to find, but I can see these exact timers here with Evoke Anguish, right? I can see when the boss starts casting them, stuff like that. Sometimes that can be a little bit clunky if they're like environmental effects and whatnot, but you get the idea. But like I can look at this and go, okay, so great. I can see that Envir is doing Avenging Wrath to cover. He's covering the first one and the fourth one, and then he's doing Aura Mastery. He's going to be using that on the third one. So he's covered 1 and 4 with Avenging and Aura Mastery on this one. That's cool. If I look at, this is me in this case. So Evangelism. Also, what else was I doing? Rapture also goes here. In this case, a Powered Barrier. So okay, you can see again, we go back to the damage done. There's a Powered Barrier, which is going to hit the Harvest Thoughts chunk of damage, and then it's going to carry over a bit into this Evoke Anguish. And then I'm going to be ramping up doing Evangelism here for this second Evoke Anguish. So that's the stuff that I'm covering. All right, cool. If we look at Istaya again, for example, I think this went wrong. Yeah, she doesn't normally do Divine Hymn here. And I think this is, because this is overlapping. Yeah, so, I mean, you can see it's 45% overhealing. So she doesn't normally do it there, as far as I know. I'd actually have to double check it. I'm one of our healers left, so I'm just filling in as a healer. And it's been so long since we actually did progress on the boss. I don't fully remember, to be honest, some of it. I think that she normally does like a Holy Word Salvation, I think for the third. Or she does a Holy Word Salvation maybe for the second one. And then she does the Divine Hymn for the third, something like that. The fourth one doesn't do as much damage because you've got lots of immunities. And then if you look at Mandua, for example, just to finish it off here, Healing Tide Totem goes in on the third one. That's good. And then we've got Spirit Link Totem on the second one. Okay, cool, which helps stabilize after the first one. As you can see, there's a bit of a, these two are very close together, and then there's a nice big gap with Mind Grasp, and then there's 2 close together. So this is the sort of thing you're going to look at, and you want to be looking at that. What are the big damage spikes? Where are these big spikes of damage? Where are the dangerous overlaps? Where are the peaks? And then typically you're going to go in, and like I said, just copy better guilds, right? If you find a guild that has the exact same healing comp that you have, they have the same, whatever, 4 healers or 5 healers, 3 healers, whatever you're bringing to a fight. If they have that exact same team, just go in and copy. That's the best place to start. Just copy what they're going to do. Why not? They killed the boss. It worked for them. So just go steal their setup, right? Use your healing cooldowns where they use theirs and start from there, and you're going to be really well set, to be honest. And again, understanding where the damage is coming from and setting up healing cooldowns is going to be like that. I can go more in depth than that. There's a lot more. That's a very brief introduction, but there you go. Another thing I want to cover, sorry for mobile users because this probably won't be entirely clear. Exorcist raid tools, this is really good. You got loads of good things in here. The 2 things I want to focus on for just this video, number 1 is your note. This is really important. You need everyone to have this add-on and to have this note be easily visible. This is just going to show up on screen, so you can type in whatever text you want and have it show up on screen. Some people could use this sometimes, I think, to show like boss tactics and stuff like that. For me, I never really use this. This is our Nazoth note to show you, for example. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, but essentially we've got split into 2 teams, and then there's a couple of people that stay outside. So it just lets people know whatever day. And I have to change this all the time because we're always bringing different people on farm, right? People rotating around. So I'm always updating this, right? And yeah, it's just these are the people that are going to go do Psychus 1, and these are the kicks that are assigned, kick 1, 2, and 3. Again, this is team 2. These are the people that are going to do that, and then there's actually 4 kicks because they're ranged and their kick cooldown is longer. Then also the necks are assigned. That's a Mythic N'Zoth specific thing. And then bombs. These are also neck assignments. So it's just so people know exactly, like, where do I use my neck in Mythic N'Zoth? This is exactly where you're going to see exactly where you want to use it. When I need to switch this around as a raid leader, I update the note, I send a new note, and that can be very helpful. Actually, Carapace is a great one. Another one, for example, where you're splitting into teams, and it's very helpful for me because I will, it can be difficult to check through all of this to go, okay, guys, check the note. Are you in there? Like, can you find yourself? Are you exactly where you need to be? And then whatever, like, Feyblade could come back and say, yeah, okay, I'm in phase 2 on the left team, but you left me out of phase 1. Oh, and you put in, Moby is in phase 1 in wave 1. But Moby isn't supposed to be there. In fact, Moby's not in. You can see phase 2. So Moby almost probably definitely isn't supposed to be in the note. Oops. But yeah, they can say something like that, and people will, and you can sort it out. But just make sure that people know what they're doing. Here's actually an example. This is Dressigath. This is one where I actually did have quite a bit of the strategy in there. The Dressigath fight, if you guys know it. And again, you can find all the fight kills in my YouTube playlists. Dressigath fight was all about these ads would spawn around the room, and you'd be killing the ads at specific times. These seeds, these are for the tanks. The tanks would get this debuff on them, and then it would drop off of them in this AoE circle, and you could use that to debuff the mobs. So this is instructions for the tanks for where to put these seeds, and then essentially instructions for the DPS in terms of which ones to focus. This was when it was on progress, when that stuff actually mattered. Like nowadays, you just YOLO it and it dies, right? But on progress, that kind of mattered. Not that usual I do something like that. I mean, let's say like Zanesh. Okay, Zanesh, I got some kicks assigned. And this is a weak aura. I'll come to that in a second. And then these are the people that are going to do the void rituals, right? So it's assignments. These are specific jobs that you're going to have to do that you're assigning people for. That's really what this is important for, which is a mythic rating thing. Not that important if you're just doing heroic. Weak auras for key mechanics. This is another big deal. Actually, let me just touch on this. This is a really cool weak aura. Weak auras are essential for raiding, of course. This one is called Anchor Interrupt Order to Nameplates, right? This one is awesome. So, for example, Awakened Terror is this one over here. And you can go into custom options. So here we go. It's going to track 4 kicks. I'm going to let the Exorcist Raid Tool note override the settings above. So essentially what it's going to do is, I think Bigwigs is auto marking the mobs, but essentially in this fight, there's going to be these 3 mobs that spawn in one by one. They're going to do these casts. If they finish the cast, it fears the whole raid, and it's probably a wipe, right? So what I've got done here is I've set it so that this is essentially like a command string for this weak aura that is going to notify people, and I'll put a big number above the mob's head. It'll say 1 when it's the first kick. When the first person kicks it, it goes to a 2, right? And so on. And this weak aura node essentially is assigning people to do that, and it will automatically notify them. It's a really, really impressive weak aura. It's cool. Now, a more simple example of this will be for Mythic Raden. Our guild struggled a lot with the Mythic Vita, the Vita mechanic, Unstable Vita. Essentially, you get this lightning proc on you, and then after it expired, it would jump to the furthest person from you. So you needed to make sure that those people were positioned so that the lightning would not cross anyone else. Because if it touched anyone else, they would die and you'd wipe, basically. Or you could probably battle res once, but then you'd be screwed. So I made this, right? And as people struggled with this, I kept getting this. This kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more glowy. And I'd send it to people and say, okay, you've messed this up like twice in a row. Take this weak aura. I made it bigger, right? Just this giant glowy thing in your screen so that there's no excuse for going, oh, well, I didn't realize I had the debuff, right? Use weak auras to help with that stuff. If you've something and you need to know, like, let's say I need to, I can't do raid markers when I'm not in a raid. Oh, that's a bummer. But let's say I've got to run over to this guy. Can I mark him? Oh, I can. I don't think he sees that. But let's say I've got to run over to Cross really fast, right? Again, that weak aura will pop up. I go, oh god, I need to be over on Cross. I'll run over to Cross. I'll see the weak aura. I know that comes before everything else. That's really important. So are there any mechanics that weak auras will help? Again, steal these from the kill videos you see. Go, that's a cool weak aura. I'm going to grab that. Wago.io is currently the website for weak auras. Grab those. It's also important to keep explanations short when you start a new boss. You don't want to overwhelm your raiders with info. They're not going to remember it all, so try to keep it short. You will forget things as well, like on Mythic N'Zoth. I remember our very first pull, I explained most of the phase 1 mechanics and forgot about Paranoia. So Paranoia started like 15 seconds in, and the whole raid wiped. Everyone was like, "What the fuck is going on?" It was amazing. One of my crowning achievements as a raid lead. Yeah, we already talked about that. Oh, and then also like prep up the roster so people know when they're gonna be coming to the fight. So be like, okay, you're coming. These are the 20 people that are coming for this boss. I may have to sit out, you know, whatever DPS. Like okay, maybe Carolyn is gonna have to sit out because we might be bringing in another healer. Maybe we're gonna try 5 heal it. So whatever, Melindius, you're gonna come in and you're gonna be the 5th healer perhaps for some of this. Okay, cool. And then go, okay, and if we kill this boss, the next boss, this is the roster that we're gonna start with for the next boss. And yeah, just have so people know when they're coming in, what they have to do. Make that stuff clear. That's something that that I always do. So let me see if I can find an example. Okay, like here's a great example. And this actually, you know what? I forgot to describe this properly. But Discord, having a guild Discord is amazing for announcements and discussions and stuff like that, right? So, for example, in announcements, this one, right, this is our boost roster for tonight. Might be doing a 4 times cloth trader, so just 4 people that can trade cloth loot for a boost. Doesn't really matter, but here, I'm going to put in, okay, these are the people that are coming, right? These are the people on backup. Cool. And then I also have I also let people know, like, if people are going to be missing whatever, then that's that, right? So that's cool. Okay. Whew. This is basically as long as the first attempt. Frick's sake. Terrible. There's just too much info to cover. Okay, for raid assessment, let's try to get through this a little bit quicker. So assessing your raid, right? This is your job, is to identify what went wrong. How do you do it? You go through logs, right? Logs. Have details. Have info. Okay, again, these are some of the key things you're going to be looking at, right? Damage taken by friendlies or enemies, right? Okay, damage taken from ability. Let's say, for example, Anguish, right? So Anguish is this pool on the ground. You can avoid this entirely if you step in this pool. It's going to do a ton of damage, slow your movement speed, and drain your sanity. It is very, 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 very bad to touch Anguish. So I can go into this and I can look and say, okay, who took damage from Anguish? Okay, well, Yustaya took an awful lot of damage from Anguish in this pool. Some other people took a couple of little hits there. Okay, cool. And you can check for those sort of things. That's really important, right? That's really important. Again, cast timers, look for, you know, make sure that you can double check that people are using their abilities when you need them to. So, yeah, for example, you can go, okay, well, we need to kill this ad. There's an ad that spawns in. We've got 10 seconds to kill the ad. Okay, when are people using their cooldowns? And then we might have to say, all right, let's move some of our cooldowns around. Like, okay, mage number 1, you're going to have to use your combustion on this ad. It's really important. We need that to die. So move your combustion over there. Let me see, how is that cast timer change going to affect the rest of things? Okay, there's no big DPS check that this is going to affect, so we can move that combustion there and it's going to be fine. And then check back, and again, you go into like damage done. Let's say a great example, not by ability. Let's go to damage done to enemies. Okay, so for example, expose synapse. That's a really good one, right? So these are these tentacles that you have to kill beside Psychus, beside this mini boss. When you kill them, it puts a debuff on the mini boss, and you have to stack that debuff up to actually kill the mini boss. He's not killable otherwise. So I can look at this and I can go like, okay, for Psychus team 1, right? How are they doing? Okay, well, Northwind's doing all the heavy lifting. I can go, all right, well, Feyblade has not done like anything to these at all. He's barely ahead of the tank. So I could go and look at that and go, okay, well, is there a problem? Are these dying on time? Do you need to change something, etc., right? That's the sort of stuff you're going to be looking for. Again, check for positioning. Another thing you can do is you can go into replays. And this is pretty cool. So let's say for... Where's a good example? It should be around here is where we should be going for Evoke Anguish 1. Oh, maybe it's going to bug out and not work. No, it is. Okay, so we're stacked up to soak this. We're going to watch, okay, how are people moving for Evoke Anguish 1? Are people moving well? Is this efficient? Is this good? Okay, I mean, like, that looks fairly reasonable, and people are going to move around. And cool, like, I can check how people are moving. You can see visually. I can also check and see what people are doing at the same time. Like, let's say, let's pick on Irithel, Fury Warrior. I'll go like, okay, well, he was the last to move. Like, what's he up to? Is he tunneling too much damage? Let's see. We can see exactly what he's casting here. And you go through a breakdown. So, yeah, he's smacking the boss. He's executing the boss, got a rampage off, and then he's moving. He got to where he needed to be on time, so it's fine. You know what I mean? But, like, you can check those things, and that is the stuff you want to check. Assignments as well. Make sure that people, if you've assigned kicks, make sure people are actually doing the kicks. Yeah, make sure people are moving where they're supposed to be moving. If you've told someone that they need to kill an ad, you can check and make sure that they are actually hitting the ad, etc. That stuff, right? One of the big questions, most difficult questions for a raid leader can be, is there a strategy problem or is there an execution problem? So this is, for example, let's say that, let's go back here to this example. Okay, so this is Psychus 1, right? Is this good for Psychus 1? Is our Psychus 1 strategy good? It can be very difficult to tell, right? And this is one of the difficult things you got to work out, is you go, okay, have I sent the wrong specs down? Like, do we need different specs down there? Like, do we need a different route? Do we need a different strategy? Or is it actually that we've got a good plan, and it's just that people aren't doing the plan properly? People are doing mistakes. People aren't hitting the stuff that, like, so let's say, for example, that, you know, the Psychus 1 team are going, guys, the things aren't dying fast enough. We need to do more damage to these things. Like, what's going on here? You can come in and look at it and go, okay, well, possibly I could switch in another hunter, like switch in another range class because the melee are struggling. Or possibly I can go and I could look more in depth in the replay and go, okay, well, the melee simply are, you know, hitting the mini boss, and they're not actually hitting the ads that they're supposed to be hitting, and that is actually the problem. You can go in and try to figure that out. Sometimes it's not clear, and oftentimes when it's not clear, it can be on a difficult progress boss, just a case of, well, we need to pull a few more times, and you can let your team know that. Say, I'm not sure if we need to change the strategy right now. Let's get a few more pulls in. Focus. This is the concern. We need to make sure that these die on time. Make sure to prioritize getting damage onto those synapses, and then we can review it after another few pulls. When we get another good couple of pulls where people have done good attempts, we can review, and then I can maybe change things around. But I'm not sure if we need to. And if I do switch a hunter in, that's a hunter gone from somewhere else, and blah blah blah. Another big question: can you fix a problem with a weak aura? I thought this is the perfect example. Again, what I talked about earlier. Giant fucking thing. Okay, people are not reacting to getting the Vita. They're standing there and they're murdering the whole fucking raid because they're shit. You can fix that problem with a weak aura. Make it bigger. Cover their whole fucking screen. Give them no excuse not to know that there's no Vita. Bam. Problem solved, right? Easy. Just go, take this weak aura. Bam. It's fixed. You're done. Adjust your callouts to help with areas of difficulty. This is another thing you can do. So, again, this is more intensive for you, but you can go, okay, well, people are dying to the Vita all the time, so you could do something like, okay, first Vita starting in 3, 2, 1. Okay, Vita is on Axtane. Well, it would never be on Axtane because he's the tank, but you know, you get the idea, right? You can call it out, and you can adjust your raid leading, your call outs, to help with the areas of difficulty. If there's a mechanic, that's what you want to be doing. If there's mechanics that are causing problems, that's where you want to help people focus their attention. What can you do to assist them? Again, weak aura is one of the easiest things. You can change your call outs. A couple of tools you can use as well. WoW Analyzer can help you with your own play. So, I mean, I'll pick on myself for Rathian. I'm playing Shadow Priest. So you can see, like, some things are fine, some things are not fine. Like, this is really bad. There's really bad downtime. You can look at the timeline. I don't think, for example, that maybe some of it is bad downtime. I'm not sure. Some of this is just the Rathian mechanics. So I don't know if it's going to account for that perfectly. Like right here, this is one of the intermission phases. I think over here, actually, I was trying to cheese it a little bit, and obviously it didn't work very well. But yeah, I tried to cheese it a little bit of extra damage onto Rathian during an intermission, and then I had to use Dispersion to yeet my way to safety. So yeah, maybe it's not perfect. I was actually trying to look at our Mythic N'Zoth kill. Like, it doesn't really matter, but like there's apparently a whole bunch of issues that are inaccurate, so that's an issue. But when this does work, this can be a really great tool. Unfortunately, just in this particular kill, these are both very complex bosses. Carapace and N'Zoth are the last two bosses. Rathian is very simple, but has a big intermission, so with loads of downtime, so that puts stuff off a little bit. But on something like Shadhar, which we were looking at earlier, you get some really good insights from that. Wipefest is another great thing you can put in. This is the kill, the N'Zoth kill we were looking at. And again, you can see this cool stuff, right? So really great tools in here. You can see this is our route for the first Psychus. This is the route for the second Psychus. Cool. You can see some of this stuff. So like people getting mind controlled by Gift from the N'Zoth. So Pac-Man got mind controlled really early. I got mind controlled. The second we got the kill, that's not too bad. I can live with that. You can see like damage from corruption. You can see how people are using potions. This can give you a really good overview. People standing in the anguish, etc. So this can be a really great way, if the logs are intimidating, this can be a great way to just slot stuff in, share it with your raid team, and they can check. You can go into the players and see how they're doing. So like I did really badly in this one, and you can see why. Like, what's going wrong? Okay, well, I went insane in the last second. Damage from corrupted viscera, so I'm getting hit by mechanics I should be dodging. That's not a thing. Damage from probe mines. Again, that's like sort of a strategy thing I never fully covered with the guild because it was not worth the hassle. We just out-healed it. But yeah, you get the idea. In terms of, let's go into the next section. Giving feedback. Let's try blast through this. We're gonna get this video done in under an hour. Easy, easy. Giving feedback. Again, logs are super important here. When you're gonna give feedback to players, it's not much use going like, hey Bob, I just feel like you're not giving 100%, Bob. Like, who gives a fuck, right? But if you can go in and say, we'll take this for example. Okay, hey, me. You know, you took a lot of damage from probe mine. More importantly, let's say this, corrupted viscera. Like, you got hit by corrupted viscera. That's an avoidable mechanic. Like, you know, we need to cut that stuff down. In fact, I can go in and, well, let's actually check, right? Let's specifically check. Look at damage taken from ability. We can go in, and this is something that I absolutely do nearly all the time. I go into corrupted viscera. I can say, okay, look, you know, like this mechanic. Okay, this one hit's not bad. I wouldn't. But if you imagine that this was like 10 hits or something crazy, you'd be going like, okay, listen. If we look at this over the course of the night, you're missing, you know, you're getting hit a lot. You know, I actually give you an example. Let me see. Okay, great. So I had to give out to my team about this. So this is another thing that's a bit more complicated, but you can do like queries. So this is where I've sorted for specifically, essentially, avoidable damage, broadly speaking. And I can filter this, and you can see that, like, this is the filter. I can go, okay, right, if we look at the avoidable damage, you can see, like, okay, well, some people are only taking, like, 2 million-ish of avoidable damage, right? 2 million. But then we've got some people at, like, almost 6 million, 5 million. We can go into this and go, like, what are you getting hit by? Okay, you're getting hit by this stuff. This is the problem. And then, again, you can see I went back in. I said, this week. Okay. So I talked to the people. I say, okay, here's stuff to fix for N'Zoth tonight. This is avoidable damage. This is not good. This should be low. And then we went back in. I won't show you guys. I won't embarrass people. But like, we won't go back the next week and go, okay, well, this is how it was this week after I pointed out the problem and asked people to like focus on that stuff and try to improve it. And then you can go and you can say like, okay, well, whatever. Like person A, this week you did totally fine. So you worked on it and you improved. Person B, you're still just as high as you were before. And then this is something that I'll do is I'll go in and, you know, I'll talk to individuals. I'll sit down and talk to them. You know, send them a direct message on Discord. You can get them in voice chat, whatever people enjoy doing, whatever's most helpful, and talk it through. Say like, okay, cool. So this is a consistent problem. Like over the last few fights, the last few nights of progress, you're taking a lot of damage from this stuff. Like, how can we fix it? What is the issue? You can give them some solutions. You can have them give solutions, whatever, right? But discuss it with the individuals and have evidence, have stuff you can actually point out. It's none of this touchy-feely stuff. You know, you want to have actual evidence, actual stuff that you know, right? And you can point out and say, like, this is an issue. How do we fix it, right? Your goal is to find solutions. One thing that I think can happen a bit as well is, and I tend to do this too, is sometimes like when the team is messing up, like when you're struggling, when you're wiping, you can just give out to the entire group and go like, come on everyone, like stop fucking around. That can be useful for a little bit, but sometimes it can be just one or two people are the problem. Like it's you know, maybe 4 or 5 people. There's a small group of people that are consistently making the mistakes. And then it can be very disheartening for other people. Like if you're, you know, the 5 or 10 or 15 people that have been doing the fight properly for the last 30 pulls, it can be very disheartening to be given out to. So I do try to, I think it's good to try to steer away from this as much as possible. You know, don't start blaming the entire group if it's 1 or 2 people. And people know as well. People know when people are messing up. So it's better to actually take a break, talk to the individuals, try to sort that out. And if they can't sort it out, if they, you know, after you talk to people, then you just simply have to look at replacing those people, right? That's just the way it is. If people aren't going to get better, then either they're not interested, or more likely they've reached their skill cap. And that's just that's what happens, right? So you may have to just remove them from the team in that case. Another thing that's very important when you're on progress bosses, particularly hard ones, it's good to do recaps every week. So for example, on N'Zoth, you can go, okay guys, so Psychus 1 went great. All right, Psychus 1 team, really good damage there. Onto the exposed synapses. That's looking good. We've got a good kill timer on Psychus 1. For Psychus team 2, our damage on the synapses is still a little bit low. We're struggling a bit with some of the ads are disrupting us as well. So let's look into, I'm going to be looking into next week to, you know, assigning some more crowd control effects to control those ads. and I want to see like more damage onto those synapses. Once we get that done, we can easily get through this phase and we can get into the next phase. Something like that. That can be really valuable. And you can, again, link the logs and, you know, show people exactly what's going on, right? Show people exactly what's going on. And that can be really, really useful, right? It lets people know what they're doing well and what to keep doing. And then it also lets them know what they need to be preparing for and focusing on for the next night. For lower end guilds, you're going to have to coach a lot more as well. I think that can be very valuable. That's certainly stuff I had to do in earlier tiers. Coaching, by coaching, I mean essentially like telling people how to play their class. You will have to do that a bit for lower end guilds, right? Because people are going to make mistakes. And again, you don't have to do this in a hostile way. Again, this is, you know, your goal is to help people, right? You're doing a service, right? As the guild leader, as a raid leader. But you can sit in and go like, okay, you know, we need to make a damage check on this boss and we're struggling. Like the damage numbers you're pulling are a lot lower than other mages, for example. Let's go look at it. Let's look at the timings. How are we doing on these timings? Can we move these cooldowns around to make more sense, to get more damage out of it? And generally speaking, most people will find this very helpful. I think in my experience, people find this very helpful. Most people are pretty cool with it. Some people really aren't. That's very rare, though, that you get someone that doesn't like that. I thought one of our healers this tier, for example, was not happy at all with the idea that he would have to adjust his healing cooldowns to do what was well for the team and not just well for his own personal healing throughput at the end of the fight on the meters. But generally speaking, most people want to be better. They want to do well. And yeah, I mean, getting you know, some coaching, some insight can be very, very useful. Can be very useful, and go like, because people, you know, a lot of people aren't going to know how to work through these logs and how to make sense of them. So it's something that you're doing anyway as the raid leader. So again, it can be very helpful because, you know, like in higher level guilds, you know, you expect people to be fairly self-sufficient, but in lower level guilds, like people aren't going to know how to read logs or anything like that. They're going to have no idea what they're doing wrong. They're going to have no idea how to fix it. So if you can give them some pointers, give them some direction, give them some tips, that can make a huge difference for your team. Yeah, direct players to logs, WoW Analyzer, give them the tools to self-improve, and try to be calm as well. You know, you have to get mad sometimes. It's right to be mad sometimes, but most of the time you should try to be calm. And yeah, like I said, you know, you're trying to get solutions, you're trying to help the team, work with the team, guide the team, and like they want to be there, you want to be there. So yeah, it's good. Shot calling. This is making calls in the fight. I don't actually call all that much. This is sort of my approach to it, and different people I think will have different approaches. The way I see it is that you already have, you know, DBM or bigwigs. You've got a boss mod and you've got weak auras that are going to cover an awful lot of mechanics. So again, my favorite example, I could call on Sable Vita all the time, but with this weak aura, I don't really need to, right? Because the weak aura does it for me, and there's going to be boss mods doing it. So I don't really need to call it that much, unless it continues being a massive problem, in which case, like I said, you have to adjust and start calling it more. But generally speaking, a lot of stuff is already going to be covered by your add-ons. At the same time, there is a certain degree where having regular callouts can help people focus, it can help them find a rhythm, it can ground them in the fight. So even if stuff doesn't necessarily need callouts anymore when your team has learned the fight, it can still be useful to keep doing some callouts just to have that rhythm, to remind people, just keep them a little bit focused. That can be valuable. Generally speaking, though, I think the thing you want to focus on most with your callouts is the mechanics that matter most, the things that are most difficult, the things that are most likely to cause wipes, the things that need attention, I can actually give you some examples. So if we look at our Mythic N'Zoth kill, and again, I actually went through it and I tried to figure out, okay, I took a note of every single raid lead call that I made. So you can see, look at this. This is the first 6 minutes of the boss. And look at this, the first 6 minutes of the boss, that's a long time. I've said almost nothing because this was like, you know, 250, 300 pulls in. People knew this part of the fight really well. There's not much to do. You can watch the kill video. At the start, interestingly enough, there is actually quite a bit of discussion where I had changed part of the strategy. So it's just, again, explaining the strategy change, and that requires quite a bit of talking. Then I'm simply reminding people about paranoia. This is a mechanic where everyone is linked with another person. You have to get to that person without touching anyone else, and you have to get there quickly, otherwise you die horribly. So just remind people about paranoia, because if people aren't paying attention and then they go, oh shit, where am I supposed to go? They could be dead very quickly if they're not paying attention. this is mostly, though, I would say, that's mostly a case of just, it's not a call out that people needed anymore. There were weak auras to help with that. People were very aware of what to do, but it's just useful to have that as a little, just a reminder, just again for that rhythm. These ones are a bit more interesting. Psych is dying soon. Because this is, you know, it dies depending on your DPS. So it's just a sort of a mildly helpful thing to say, okay, when the mini boss dies, when Psychus dies, which one team is doing, the other team can't even see it, then the boss is vulnerable and Azoth is vulnerable, and then you want to burn the boss, get as much damage as you can. So kind of useful to let people know, okay guys, Psychus is going to be dying, you know, probably in the next 5-ish seconds. Be ready to switch onto the Azoth and start burning down the boss. You know, be ready for that. It's going to be coming. So yeah. Again, you can see some reminders for this sort of stuff. Again, just a couple of examples. This one is where there's an actual call. This is, again, 6 minutes in before we've got something that actually is meaningful in terms of a call. And this is quite rare. I think I actually said this somewhere. Yeah, like live decision making is actually quite rare. It's quite rare because a lot of raid fights is very planned out. It's very predetermined. But for example, this is going, okay, there's the point where we stack up and we use our necks to restore sanity. We need to be stacked up for that. But there's going to be ads around, and then when the ads die, they leave explosions behind and bad stuff. So I'm just saying, okay, guys, there's lots of ads. Don't stack up yet. Okay, the ads are dead. Stack up now on star. Let's go, let's go. Okay, and then we pop our necks, right? Just guiding your team through that is an example. Another one here, this was where actually from the video I thought I could have done a better job when I was watching this through, was saying get ready for lasers, because this is another mechanic. There are these eyes that spawn around the boss, and then they spin around the boss. Their spawn location is random. It's random, so they could spawn right on top of you, this laser that's going to kill you, or it could spawn and be super easy. Yeah, warning the team to be ready for that is really important. Probably, though, a countdown would be better, going, okay, there's laser spawning in 3, 2, 1, watch for lasers, right? So your team knows, okay, the lasers are coming, I'm prepared, I'm ready for it. The laser, like the eyeball appears, it's going to shoot the laser. I've been expecting it, I see it, I'm reacting, and I'm already gone, I'm already dealing with it when the effect comes in. It's no use, like, bad raid leading, I think, would be going, like, not saying anything. The laser comes out and kills people and going like, what the fuck? How the fuck did you die to these lasers? You know, that's useless. There's no point in that. But warning your team in advance, getting them ready, prepping people on these short calls, right, to deal with that. That's a big part. Focus on the mechanics that matter most. This is something that's going to kill people. They need to react to quickly. If they're not paying attention for a couple of seconds, they could die. Reminder, countdown, prep people. Here we go. Call out to repair people. Lasers coming in. 3, 2, 1, care. Perfect example. Wow, who wrote this? Genius. Okay. And yeah, like on progress, you're going to talk a lot. Once the fight is learned, you're going to scale back, right? So on farm, I barely, there's barely anything to call. And certainly I think this is an interesting example of a boss fight that's like 12 minutes long or something. It's really long. You can see for that first 6 minutes, there's almost nothing said. Look at the final 6 minutes though. There's a lot more said here, right? There's an awful lot more. You can see there's longer things here, right? There's longer things here. Okay, like for example, let's say, okay, there's a gate timer. Taking the gate in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, don't worry that you're low on health. Stack up an orange. We're gonna soak the thoughts. We're chill, right? We're chill. Okay, and stuff like that, right? So you can see it's gonna get a lot more in depth here, right? So okay, wait for Evoke Anguish. Like we've just soaked these thought harvesters. You know, stay stacked, wait for Evoke Anguish. Okay, go. Windrush, get your positions, be ready for lasers. There's lasers coming in like 3, 2, 1. Lasers, watch it. Okay, cool. We're moving around. People are dodging the lasers. Gonna be dropping the next Evoke Anguish at the back. Make sure it goes at the back. Get it over there. After that drop, you're coming out, you're going, okay, paranoia, spread out. We've got paranoia. The paranoia, we're moving to the back with the paranoia, back of the room. You know, you're guiding people through. I don't do this on farm, because, well, I do a little bit, but people, generally speaking, know this. But you can see if you watch the video, it's super fucking chill for the first while, because people know the fight. You don't need to talk. But then we get to this new part of the fight that we haven't seen all that often. Suddenly use the raid leader. It's your job to draw attention to the important mechanics, guide people through it so they know where they're going, right? They're prepared for where they're going. They know what they're going to do. You can also delegate jobs, right? So for example, Uter usually does B-reses because he was playing a warlock for BFA, so he would often do the battle res, right? But he'll be tracking that and he'll call for battle res. You can do other stuff like that. Or again, if your raid is split up into a couple of different teams or whatever, you need healing call outs, whatever, like have the tanks call for externals, blah, blah, blah. You can delegate certain jobs. You don't need to call everything yourself. So yeah, there you go. One funny thing I actually saw was I got asked a question. This is quite funny to me. I got asked a question, had to answer the question, and then missed the call for the lasers. That could be something that having, you know, a backup could be good. Like just have you know, one of the other officers like be very focused. And okay, if the mechanic isn't being called, like if you fuck up as the main shot caller, then have the backup shot caller come in and remind and make that call as well. That can be very useful because you will miss stuff. Like this one was very genuine. I got asked a question. It's like, okay, like a relevant question about the strategy, answered the question, and then the laser happened, right? So most people, you're already automatically dodging it, but in case you're not, something to watch out for. Okay, final slide. We've made it, guys. Final slide. Again, reminder, if you have questions, if I've gone over stuff too quickly, yeah, let me know and we can do another video. For your roster, this is really important as a raid leader. Decide what level your raid team is aiming to get. What are your goals? Are you going for ahead of the curve? Are you going for cutting edge? Whatever. Are your goals to play with your friends? Or is your goal to be more competitive? You know, friendship versus progress, because these things will clash. When you go into Mythic, these things clash. I would from the start of this expansion to now, I think that from Uldir, I think we've got 4 people out of the initial like 24 or something. I think about 4 people are still there. A good chunk of them left. A good chunk of them I had to kick out, had to remove. You know, just because they're not up to the standards of the team, and that's something that you're very much going to find with a new guild or a guild that's trying to progress quickly and rank up. Most guilds, like longer term guilds that have been around for a while, they're going to be more stable. You're not going to have that level of turnover, but still, this is something you need to decide, right? You need to decide this. So for example, with our team, I don't know, I'd probably roughly say it's something like 20% friendship, 80% progress. The idea would be that, hey, look, we're a cutting edge guild. We're always, you know, we want to improve. We want to be getting better. We want to be doing well at these fights. And that's the reason that we're friends. That's the reason that we play together, is because we enjoy doing this. It's no use if, like, whatever, if Bob comes in and suddenly Bob is not arsed doing any of his dailies. Bob's not arsed grinding his gear. Bob's not arsed looking up the fight. He doesn't care. He's just going to stand the fire. You know, even though we might like Bob, it's like it just doesn't fit in. That's just going to ruin the raid team. It's just going to ruin everyone's fun. It's no good. Bob would be happier somewhere else, to be perfectly honest. So that's what you have to decide, right? If your guild, if friendship is what matters, if people like playing with their friends and you like progress, well, you know, this might not be the team for you. It might not be the raid for you. And if you come in as a raid leader and you start trying to kick people out when all people want to do is play with their friends, that's not going to be good either. It's what are the goals? Like, that's the point of a raid team. That's what's important, I think, for long-term success, is that you have fairly clear goals and that people are part of the team because they want those goals as well. And that's what your job is to facilitate. Personally, I like around about a 23-person roster for Mythic, roughly. We've operated on very low rosters, like more like 20, 21 for most of our cutting-edge kills, and it's very stressful because if someone is sick, if someone needs to miss a day, you're screwed. You can be really, really screwed. It can be a nightmare to try to fix that. 23 people, I find you still get most people in for most fights. You know, everyone gets a good shot at playing, and you still have enough people that if someone has, you know, like a holiday or a work meeting or something, that you've got people that can fill in. You're not going to be too stuck. I think right now we've got 25 going into Shadowlands, which I think is fine. I know some guilds go much higher with their roster. I personally, I don't like that. I like this, but there's different ways of doing it. Like I said, we tend to err on the lower side. Yeah. Also, I think this is important. This is sort of one of my rule of thumbs for whether or not someone should be kept for the raid team, is you don't want to have anyone that's going to be a bench warmer. You have only bring people that you will want to bring to prog. Like if I sit down and I go, okay, Bob, do I ever want to sit out one of these other players to bring in Bob? Is there any fight in this raid where I'd want to do that? If I can't say emphatically, like, yeah, definitely, I think Bob will be great on this fight, and it'd be great to have him for this fight. If I can't say that, there's no point in having that person there. You're not going to bring them to any of the fights because you're not going to want to. They're not going to have a good time. If you do have to bring them, you're not going to have a good time because you don't trust them and blah, blah, blah. That's no good. They're going to have a better time, and you're going to have a better time if they're in a different guild. So that's sort of my thought process on that, right? Only keep people that you're actually genuinely going to bring and that you want to bring. You're better off running a small roster and just dealing with that than you are having a bigger roster of people that either aren't nice to play with or people that aren't good enough for whatever level you're playing at, but bringing them just in case, like, that's not good. Just always be recruiting and get someone else in new. There's loads of great players out there. Get someone else in new. Yeah, there you go. And you have to be prepared to make difficult decisions as well, right? I've had to kick people out from the team. Some of them that I'm delighted to get rid of. Some of them I'm very, very upset to get rid of. I really don't want to kick them. I really like them. It's a difficult decision. They've got friends in the team. But at the same time, it's depending on what your goals is. If the players don't align with the goals, ultimately that's going to hurt everyone on the team. And people are going to be better off when they're in a team where they fit in and where those goals align. So that is your job, but they are difficult decisions, right? It's the same as, like, firing someone in work or whatever. Sometimes everyone is in agreement. You're like, yes, thank God they're gone, that's fantastic. Oftentimes though, it can be tricky, it can be difficult. For general team rules, we keep our rules fairly simple. Like, these were roughly speaking be what we do. In fact, I think we have, like, team info. Yeah, like, here we go. Like, these are the raid nights. Bring these add-ons, consumables, blah, blah, blah. Let people know if you can't attend, whatever, right? But generally speaking, be polite, just be nice to people, generally speaking. Good attendance is absolutely essential. Yeah, like, you are going to get kicked so fast. If you're late, like, there was one, I had to kick one guy this tier, because he turned up late for every single raid night. And again, this was the problem with having the small roster, was that at the time, I think we were 20 people at the time, couldn't get rid of him. As soon as we got, like, an extra person, bye-bye, you're gone. You're gone. Attendance is super important. You want to be there for basically every raid night. And you want your players to be there and make sure that is enforced. That's really important. Yeah, for people, be prepared in terms of bringing your consumables that you need, your gear. Make sure you're doing your daily, weekly stuff. That's one of the rules we have. And that people work to improve. This is, generally speaking, be our thing. And I think it's very vague, very general, but I think that's a good set of, like, just rules of expectations to give your team. Yeah, that's just going to help people. I think we'll let people succeed really well and have a great time raiding. And yeah, in terms of what you're looking for with recruits, you're looking for people with decent performance. I think Method back with Method, I think their motto was play average and don't die, right? When they were, like, the best guild in the world. Play average and don't die. You don't need people that are doing crazy damage or healing. That's not that important. You just want them to be doing decent performances, generally speaking, enough to make someone a valuable recruit. They don't need to be insane. They need to be just decent, solid, good. Most important, I think more importantly, is you want people that are reliable, that are eager to raid, and that are prepared as well, that are going to put the work in to prepare. So yeah, I think these are people that you're going to want to have there. You're going to be able to give them jobs. They're going to get it done. They're going to show up all the time. They're going to be happy to be there. They're going to put the work in to be there. That's generally speaking what you're looking for. And yeah, then finally, just a final note here. In terms of criticism, so this is when people come to you with problems. Actually, very, very rarely, I have to say, gotten, like, much criticism directed at me all that much. But, like, you get, people come to you to give out about other players or about, like, guild rules or loot rules or whatever. People come and complain about all sorts of things. I think, generally speaking, the way to address it is it's important that just let people know, okay, you acknowledge what they've said, right? Take the point of what they've brought up. Say you'll think about it. And then go and think about it, and then come back to them and let them know what action you're going to take. So either say, like, yeah, you're right, like, whatever, Bob hasn't, done a world quest in 5 months. You're right, I've looked into it, I've talked to Bob, and Bob is going to be, grinding out those world quests for the next raid, or Bob's not coming to that raid night, something like that. Or you could come in and say, listen, we're a chill raid guild. We don't really put much emphasis on that stuff. I appreciate that this is bothering you, but for us, it's not a requirement for the raid team that Bob does any world quests, and it's totally okay if he doesn't. So I'm not going to do anything. Again, let them know. It doesn't have to be the action they want you to take, but just let people know what action you are going to take. I think that's just, generally speaking, the best way to handle things when people give out. So there you are. I think that's everything. Holy crap. Lots of stuff in there. Like I said, please do leave questions so I can give more targeted stuff. This was a very big overview. I hope it was helpful somewhat. I suspect that probably we could go more in depth, certainly in terms of the logs and breaking down the logs and how I'd actually prepare for fights and stuff. But yeah, there's certainly more than enough content for this video. I hope you enjoyed, guys, and good luck with raiding in Shadowlands. I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.